A Course in Miracles, a transcription of the Shorthand Notes manuscripts, Helen Schucman, first draft of the text volume. Only the mind is capable of illumination. The soul is already illuminated, and the body in itself is too dense. The mind, however, can bring its own illumination to the body by recognizing that density is the opposite of intelligence and therefore unamenable to independent learning. It is, however, easily brought into alignment with a mind which has learned to look beyond density toward light. It's all about the mind, never about the body in terms of ACIM, A Course in Miracles. My capital S self, is perfect joy, peace, strength with every thought, word leading to actions, with every thought leading to words and actions. So you are not a body. So, like, there's a sentence in the book: look past people's bodies to the light that they are. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing some, but it's in the book a lot. Like, see people as mind, light, spirit. Do not see them as bodies, including yourself. And there's a lesson in the book. It says, my body is a wholly neutral thing. Neutral, like for real, like dictionary definition of what neutral is, completely, is what physicality is. The body and anything else physical, completely neutral towards it. So, yeah, the mind has to look past density or past physicality. Um, um, the body has useful purposes. The body can be a temple of God. The body can definitely be utilized in God's will. But ACIM is all about getting out of the improper use of the body. So looking past people's bodies to knowing them as light, mind, spirit, and lots of ideas in this book about that. ACIM, corrective learning, always begins with awakening the spiritual eye and turning away from belief in physical sight. The reason this entails fear is because man is afraid of what his spiritual eye will see, which was why he closed it in the first place. We said before that the spiritual eye cannot see error and is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There is no doubt that the spiritual eye does produce extreme discomfort by what it sees. The thing that man forgets is that the discomfort is not the final outcome of its perception. When the spiritual eye is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, it also looks immediately toward atonement. Nothing which the spiritual eye perceives can induce fear. Everything that results from accurate spiritual awareness merely is channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need to correct forcibly into awareness. ACIM is using words to explain these ideas. And, it says the same ideas many different ways. Um, uh, Again, it's all about, living as a spirit being right now, like living as a spirit, like living as a perfected spirit being right now in a human body, is what the book is about. Um, that would be Jesus in his public mission. And Jesus, to me, he did make that sentence in the Bible. If your eye is single, your whole body shall be filled with light. And even the Urantia book decided that was too much for people. And the Urantia book, URA and TIA, changed it to if your eye is generous, your whole body shall be filled with light, because this whole thing about what real spiritual enlightenment is, um, can be too much for people. So, but that's the idea, is, utilizing everything, thought, word, action, behavior, the body, whatever, utilizing it all in God's will in terms of supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect joy, no conflicts of thought, no remorse, disappointment, sorrow, nor any other negative emotion in any way. No resentment, no angers, etc., etc. That's everybody's Christ-like self, capital S self in ACIM terms. As far as the spiritual eye being closed, that would start at birth, physical birth for a human being. From birth, we make, I, you, and anyone has made beliefs that are not the will of God. They're not perfect peace, joy, and strength. So that closes the spiritual understanding, or the spiritual eye, in a sense. Um, Having beliefs that are not the will of God, they're not perfect peace, joy, strength. They always have elements of doubt, fear, remorse, anxiety, loneliness, worry, confusion, resentment, anger, etc., etc. They always have elements of that in them because they're not the will of God beliefs. So, uh, from an early age, as a toddler, as a preteen, as a teenager, into my 20s, and anybody into their 20s, 30s, 40s, making beliefs that are not the will of God. And so, um, that would be, the idea of closing the spiritual eye. Like, for example, Jesus of Nazareth. He never made beliefs that were not the will of God. He never did that. So from a young age, Jesus was sinless because he never made beliefs that were not the will of God. So he never closed his spiritual understanding or spiritual eye, in a sense. Um, so this book talks a few different times, a few different places about, when someone begins to awaken to these ideas and starts to live these types of ideas, it's uncomfortable. To have been living in ego mentality of, um, not perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect strength. So awakening to these ideas, or beginning to understand these ideas, beginning to live these ideas, beginning to experience these ideas, is uncomfortable at first. So, like it's saying here, um, um, well, it's saying, the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of God within us, um, the thought adjuster in Urantia book terms, but the Spirit of God within anyone, um, just looks upon that which is incorrect in terms of the mind, and wants to bring about that which is correct in terms of the mind, in terms of beliefs. Um, so the defilement of the altar is all that the spirit within us, that's the only thing the spirit within us is concerned about, is incorrect beliefs leading to words and actions that are not supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect patience, kindness, tenderness, gentleness, etc. So the atonement, salvation, enlightenment, more or less the same thing. Jesus at his baptism, there's a sentence in the book where it equates all those terms, atonement, enlightenment, salvation, oneness with God. It's all the same idea. So it's not more or less the same thing. I suppose it is the same thing. But, the book does use these different words to describe oneness with God, Jesus at his baptism type of mentality. Everything that results from accurate spiritual awareness merely or only is channelized toward correction. So the only interest of the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of God in our minds, is to believe believe correctly about everything, believe correctly about every physical behavior. There's a sentence in the book that says the mind can be right or wrong. So it never uses the word moral, but that's what it's talking about. It's talking about morality. And, every physical action can be moral or immoral. If it's moral, then it's filled with peace, joy, strength, supremely happy, etc., etc. If it's immoral in terms of a physical behavior, there's remorse, disappointment, sorrow, and other negative emotions. The book uses the word guilt a lot to describe that. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need to correct forcibly into awareness. So someone coming out of ego mentality and understanding God mentality, the God mind, there's a discomfort just so the person is aware that they should be bringing about the God mind and letting go of the ego mind, allowing the ego mind to be undone, not giving energy to ego beliefs. There's a sentence in the book about you know uh, correction correction of fear is your responsibility. This is not the responsibility of the spirit within us or God himself or any other spiritual being. The correction of fear is yours, anyone's responsibility, in the sense that I have to not give energy to incorrect beliefs and allow them to die out. Reading from ACIM, the notes of Helen Schucman. What the physical eye sees is not corrective, nor can it be corrected by any device which can be physically seen. As long as a man believes in what his physical sight tells him, all his corrective behavior will be misdirected. The reason why the real vision is obscured is because man cannot endure to see his own defiled altar. But since the altar has been defiled, this fact becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived. This perception is totally non-threatening because of the atonement. The fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept the unequivocal fact that healing is necessary. The fear arises because of the necessary willingness to look at what man has done to himself. So, I mean, yeah, so Jesus in his public mission, you're still seeing things physically, but you have this mentality of understanding things as light, spirit, mind, people, especially especially people, right? As spirit, mind, light, and other physical things are not. There's a different way of viewing the world. There's a sense in the book, one of the lessons about, little edges of light will be around the same familiar objects that you used to see. So there's a whole different type of vision or seeing in terms of uh, spiritual seeing, spiritual understanding, spiritual growth. There's a way of simply viewing the actual physical world much differently than the ordinary way of seeing the world. So the reason why the real vision is obscured is because man cannot endure to see his own defiled altar. I mean, the human mind turning away from that which is perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect love, because it's fear to him. Fear would be an unpleasant emotion. Um, that's a fairly big discussion, I suppose, but um, the commitment has to be total as far as moment to moment, every moment, vigilant for God and his kingdom is an expression in this book, but vigilant for truly, supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect joy, no unpleasant emotions. Like that's my definition for fear, but no negative emotions to any degree in any way whatsoever. Zero, moment to moment to moment. How do I really want that? Well, there's a sentence in the book about um, God's joy is not complete. God's joy is not complete because yours or mine is not complete. So God is always in perfect joy, but his joy is not complete because I, you, or any other human being alive is not in perfect joy. And then the book goes on to say, God does know this, and etc. The point is that God will, the first person of the Trinity, will have his joy complete. So for me, you or anyone, to make a choice that's not supremely happy is absolutely meaningless. I cannot sustain it. I cannot maintain it. It has to go sooner or later, whatever the belief thought is. So there's absolutely no rationale or justification to do anything outside of perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect love, perfect goodness. Never, because um, that's not God or the will of God or um, ourselves living in our God mind. Um, um, and you or anyone has to eventually live in the God mind. This is not an option. So there's no reason not to. Um, and it can't be sustained. It can't be maintained. Anything outside of perfect peace, joy, supremely happy can't be maintained, can't be sustained for any length of time. So there's no rationale to do it. So yeah, so the fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept the unequivocal fact that healing is necessary. So living similarly to Jesus in his public mission is an absolute requirement of everyone. Um, uh, that could be a fairly big discussion, but that's that's an idea about it. Um, and willingness is very, very important. I have to be happy. Willing means happy to do it. Happy. Key word happy. You, or anyone has to be happy to live these ideas in terms of what perfection is, what joy is, what peace is, about anything, any physical behavior, any belief about anything. Um, I have to be happy about the real truth, or I won't do it, or I won't do it, and the real truth won't come to me in terms of my thoughts leading to my actions because I'm not happy to do it. So being happy about the real truth is absolutely essential to grow spiritually. Okay, so reading from the Notes of Helen Schucman. ACIM, healing was an ability which was lent to man after the separation, before which it was completely unnecessary. Like all aspects of the space time belief, healing ability is temporary. However, as long as time persists, healing remains among the stronger human protections. This is because healing always rests on charity. And charity is a way of perceiving the true perfection of another, even if he cannot perceive it himself. Most of the loftier concepts of which man is capable now are time dependent. Charity is really a weaker reflection of a much more powerful love encompassment, which is far beyond any form of charity that man can conceive of as yet. Charity is essential to right mindedness, in the limited sense to which right mindedness can now be attained. Charity is a way of looking at another as if he had already gone far beyond his actual accomplishment in time. Since his own thinking is faulty, he cannot see the atonement himself, or he would have no need for charity at all. The charity which is accorded him is both an acknowledgement that he is weak and a recognition that he could be stronger. The way in which both of these beliefs are stated clearly implies their dependence on time, making it quite apparent that charity lies within the framework of human limitations, though toward the higher levels. Um, so healing of the mind purification, absolute necessity. You, or anyone who made beliefs that are not the will of God, those beliefs are just as powerful as the will of God beliefs, but those beliefs have to be undone because they're not supremely happy, perfect peace, perfect joy, etc. Um, so once someone is completely healed and things of this nature, then someone is living similarly to how Jesus lived in his public mission. So Jesus isn't learning anything anymore in that sense. He isn't trying to do anything in a sense. God is simply living through him in every way. It's all very easy with strength and joy and peace as you go about your moments, whether it's thought, word, or action. Charity. So ACIM, plenty of places here, other places in the book, it's saying that IU or anyone has to see everyone else as their perfect Jesus-like self right now. That's how Jesus saw all people, was as their uh, perfect Christ-like self, is how Jesus saw everybody. So that's how I have to see everybody. That's how anybody has to see everybody else, as they're already living in their perfect peace, joy, strength, love, goodness, etc. They have no conflicts of thought. Nothing they say is contradicted by what they think or do, etc., etc. Everyone is already living that way. So that's being charitable towards others. Um, so um, ACIM is very explicit about, you have to get out there and get active with people, like what I'm doing right now, for example. You have to get out there and get active with people. This is also God's will, is that you have to be of service. The gospel of the Urantia book is the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. That's the number one idea. That's the gospel of Jesus. And what it means is, living, doing the will of God, service to God, and service to others. Every moment to moment. You have to get very active with people in every way possible. This is essential to real spiritual growth. It's just that's how God has it made. So living timelessly. So, Jesus in his public mission, he's living timelessly in the sense that he's not making any changes to himself in a sense. I mean, he's still experiencing things, but, his mind is of perfect peace, joy, strength, goodness, love, compassion, understanding, no conflicts of thought, no remorse, disappointment, sorrow, etc., etc. That's living timelessly. That's living eternally, moment to moment. And that's the goal. Reading from ACIM, we said before, twice in fact. Oh, oh. That only revelation transcends time. The miracle, as an expression of true human charity, can only shorten it at best. It must be understood, however, that whenever a man offers a miracle to another, he is shortening the suffering of both. This introduces a correction into the record, which corrects retroactively as well as progressively. Revelation transcends time. So, revelation, living perfectly in God's will in terms of Jesus, similar to Jesus and his public mission, perfect peace, joy, strength, and other things about what real enlightenment is. Um, Miracles. Anything that's filled with joy, peace, strength, goodness, anything that is the God mind is a miracle. And if I'm only thinking and doing miracles in terms of joy, peace, strength, goodness about everything, then the ego mind is not present. And the goal is to have no ego mind present, the complete undoing of the ego mind. It's a sense in the book about the ego mind isn't destroyed. I'm paraphrasing some, but it's the ego mind is transformed back into the God mind, something like that, as far as energy is concerned. Again, interacting with others. This is absolutely essential. The book talks about a tremendous amount. And it's all about living up. So it's all about I, you, or anyone living up to what I know is sinless, pure, holy, moral, virtuous, righteous about everything, every physical behavior, every thought, every word, living up to that. And then only looking for that in others. And if they're not doing that, it doesn't upset me at all because I'm strong in my beliefs about whatever the subject is, about everything we do as human beings. I'm strong in my beliefs. So if somebody's doing the opposite, it's not going to tempt me to do the opposite. Um, but but that's how you help others. And it says here corrects retroactively as well as progressively. I mean, I'm thinking about like in the Seth books. In the Seth books by Jane Roberts, there's a sentence like it is possible to literally change your past. Um, so um, I mean, life is always about living in the present moment, the eternal now. That's what life is always about. That's what eternity is about, et cetera, et cetera. But, uh, you know, if I can, so in ACIM terms, if I can forgive myself for seeing people as bodies for one thing, like if I can truly forgive myself for seeing people as bodies, then in the present moment, I'm not going to be seeing people as bodies. And I'm not going to remember those moments in the past where I saw people as bodies. The only thing I'm going to remember, this is a sentence in ACIM about only your loving thoughts will be remembered. So, one truth about loving thoughts is not seeing people as bodies. So, um, 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 so it's about forgetting. And, a lot of sentences in this book. Not, I mean, not a tremendous number, but quite a few sentences about, something about like, you know, um, remembering and forgetting. Truly forgetting those things which were not the will of God, error in any way. Um, um, there's some very good sentences about the topic of remembering, forgetting, in A Course in Miracles. Um, but that's the goal: is to remember only that which was truly loving thoughts, joy, peace, strength, goodness, the will of God. So that would be retroactively uh, correcting, um, and then moment to moment into the future.